Theft of the Dead. Have you heard this story? If not, let me tell it to you. Paul and Kevin are two close friends. Their hometowns are far apart, but they study in the same class at university. They became friends because they shared the same hobby, which is backpacking. During this 3-day holiday, the two of us carried backpacks on a backpacking trip up the Caucasus mountain passes. The winding road and steep passes are dreamlike, an ideal scene for backpackers. Occasionally the two guys stopped to take photos to commemorate the trip. When we were more than 20 kilometers away from our destination, the sky began to darken and it rained heavily. There was no place to stay, so the two men had to put on raincoats and continue walking. It was only 4 p.m. on the street, but it was strangely dark and deserted. The torrential rain turned white, visibility narrowed to a few meters. We recognized each other thanks to the car lights. The two guys carefully searched little by little. Ahead is a dangerous crab. On this road, one side is a cliff and the other side is an abyss. Because they ran up, the two guys walked to the side of the cliff. Heavy rain makes the scene below the abyss look like a deep silver-coated basin. Coming around the corner, suddenly there was a light from a motorbike coming in the opposite direction. The driver was a woman. I don't know if she was in a hurry or because she was careless about the empty road. She drove down at quite a fast speed, hugging the corner deeply into the opposite direction. When she discovered a car, she braked quickly and turned the steering wheel to the right. That was a very wrong decision. The motorbike slid a long distance, crashed into the cliff and stopped. The seat came off, papers and clothes spread along the road. 10 meters away, the girl's body lay prone, motionless, blood smeared with red rainwater for a distance. Paul and Kevin quickly stopped the car. Paul ran back to the girl, raised his head, pulled down his mask and put his hand on his nose to check. The rain was too heavy, I couldn't feel it. Paul pulled his shirt to feel his pulse, then turned to Kevin and said, "It's dead." Kevin stood a few meters away from Paul, watching the girl's papers and personal belongings begin to absorb water and float away. Kevin's eyes suddenly landed on a tightly tied black plastic bag. It seemed a bit heavy, so it drifted slowly. The bag tore a hole, revealing a golden object. Immediately, Kevin glanced at his friend and then secretly picked up the bag and hid it in his raincoat pocket. The part where Kevin drags Paul back to the car. "Let's go, staying here will be troublesome. If you die, the police will arrest you." Paul was bewildered. "Oh my God, we have to call the police first, we are witnesses," Kevin shouted above the sound of the rain. "You idiot. Who believes you? Whether you like it or not, it's because of you that you fall. If you get caught by the police, you will be expelled from school, you know. You can stay if you like, I'm leaving." After speaking, Kevin got in the car and drove straight. As for Paul, Paul suddenly felt scared when he had to stand here alone with a dead body. Think about what if the police don't believe you and actually arrest you and put you in jail. Thinking so, Paul also quickly accelerated and drove away quickly. When we got closer, two guys rented a double room. After showering, the rain stopped. Paul invited Kevin out to eat, but Kevin said he was tired and covered himself with a blanket to sleep. Seeing that, Paul went alone. After Paul left, Kevin crawled up, took out the black bag he had picked up, carefully went into the bathroom and locked the door. Kevin opened the bag to check. Gold. Each bar of gold appeared before my eyes. counting and counting, 30 bars. It was a huge fortune that brought Kevin into being with a starting point at the finish line. Pouring all the gold into his backpack, Kevin happily lay hugging his backpack waiting for morning. Paul went out to eat alone and walked through some streets to see the sights. It was 10:30 at night before returning to the room, not forgetting to buy you a lunchbox. When he got back to the room, he saw Kevin covered with a blanket and lying facing inward. Paul, following his natural habit, grabbed the blanket and pulled it away and asked, "Where is it this cold, Dad?" "Wake up and eat, I bought it." Contrary to Paul's imagination, Kevin quickly grabbed the blanket and covered himself and said, "What you can do? Don't touch me." Paul opened his eyes in surprise. "Hey, this guy is strange, why doesn't your pillow hug you but instead you hug your wet backpack?" Kevin said, "None of your business." Paul shook his head wearily. This grandfather is probably still dreading what happened this afternoon. Never mind, sleep one night and tomorrow morning it will be better. Paul walked into the bathroom, washed his face and rinsed his mouth. Because the hotel uses a small tube of toothpaste that can only be used once, when squeezing the toothpaste onto the toothbrush, Paul sticks his foot out and presses open the lid of the trash can to remove the peel. The lid of the box opened. What caught Paul's eye was a black bag full of fresh blood nestled inside. There was so much blood that it was thicker than a knuckle at the bottom of the trash can, and the fishy smell filled my nose. Too surprised, Paul fell back and shouted, "Kevin, please help me." Hearing Paul's scream, Kevin threw off the blanket and jumped into the bathroom. Seeing his friend crawling on the floor, Kevin pulled Paul up and asked, "What's wrong with you?" Paul said in fear, "Blood. There's a lot of blood in the trash can." Kevin also turned pale and hurriedly opened the trash can to check. There was only one black bag containing gold that Kevin had thrown in earlier, the rest was empty. Kevin asked, "Where's the blood?" As if he couldn't believe his ears, Paul looked at Kevin in surprise and then bent down to see. Obviously nothing. Paul found it very difficult to understand. He couldn't be mistaken, he clearly saw it just now. Kevin patted Paul's shoulder sympathetically. "We were so stressed today. Go to sleep, come back tomorrow morning. This trip is not fun." Paul finished cleaning himself and went to bed, pulling the blanket over his chest, thinking vaguely. Is the action of the two guys running away from the scene in the afternoon okay? Who is that girl? Why rush to drive on the mountain pass in the storm? Has the body been brought back now? How long did she lie cold like that? Thinking for a while, Paul also fell asleep. I don't know how long I slept, when Paul suddenly heard light footsteps coming to the next bed. Thinking that Kevin had woken up to go to the bathroom, Paul reflexively opened his eyes to look. At the end of Kevin's bed was the shadow of a girl. Her hair was long, her clothes were torn and covered in blood and mud. She was wet from head to toe, standing still like that, looking at Kevin. Paul dumbfounded. A cold feeling passed through my brain, causing my hair to stand on end. Knowing Paul was watching, she turned to face Paul, her face crushed and deformed, her neck broken to one side. With two white eyes, she spoke in a horrifying voice. "Give me my gold." Paul screamed and fainted on the spot. Ghost. A long time later, Paul woke up and found himself lying in the hospital. Looking around, there was pure white. Next to the bed, Kevin was waiting, holding his backpack. Seeing Paul awake, Kevin leaned forward and happily asked, "Are you awake? How did you scream in the middle of the night and faint like that?" Trying to remember the incident, Paul suddenly trembled and said to Kevin, "I saw a witch, she was standing under your bed, tell her to give her the gold." A moment of panic flashed across Kevin's eyes. But then he thought, this Paul guy is an old fox, you saw me picking up gold so now you're pretending to scare me to rob me, right? I'm here to dig into your stomach. Thinking so, Find laughed loudly. "You're crazy, you're a ghost. If you feel tired, stay here and rest, I'll come back early tomorrow. I paid your hospital fees just now, there's no need to pay it back." After speaking, Kevin took his backpack and left. There was a bit of surprise and disappointment, but Paul didn't say anything more. Friends are strange, they have to leave you when they are sick. The next day Kevin really came back. Paul stayed in the hospital for another day and then returned. After that holiday, Kevin rented another place to live separately, gradually avoiding Paul. Even though we met each other in class, Kevin gradually ignored his old friend. Once Paul asked, Kevin said, "You spend all day playing ghosts and weeds, I'm so tired." "Well, if we don't get along, let's move on to avoid bothering each other." Half a year later, everyone graduated from school. Paul returned home, and Kevin went to settle down in the city, following his lover's side. Both guys lost contact with each other. Sometimes Paul hears his friends talking to each other about Kevin's wealth and success. Because when they graduated, everyone took their resumes and applied for jobs, but Kevin turned around and opened a company selling solar energy equipment. This product is new, so it sounds like it's very popular everywhere. Have a house, a car and a beautiful wife. Paul listened and was happy for you. Time passed 2 years. Late one night, Paul suddenly received a call from Kevin. "Are you okay?" "It's me, Kevin, do you still have my number?" Paul happily replied, "I'm fine. It's been so long, I didn't remember you until today." Kevin asked straight to the point, his voice low. "Do you remember the accident we had in the past when we were traveling through the Caucasus Pass?" "How could I forget? That girl is 24 years old, her house is below the pass. I saw that posted in the newspaper." "But what?" Kevin hesitated. "I was going to ask you to come with me up there to find her house." "What? Are you free?" Paul jumped up. "I dream about her, dream very often. My wife is 5 months pregnant, it's your son." "But she said she would kill the boy," Kevin said as if crying. "My child is not guilty of anything." Paul shuddered, remembering the ghost that night. Could that be the spirit of the girl in distress? She came asking for gold, so it turns out. Paul trembled and asked, What did you do?" But the other party hung up. That night, Paul dreamed a strange dream. On the sidewalk, people stood around. Paul tried to get in to see what was going on but couldn't. The dream repeats every time Paul falls asleep. 3 days later, Paul received news that Kevin died. Anyway, once close friends, Paul put aside work and went to Kevin's house to attend his friend's funeral. Kevin's house is a big 3-story house, located in front of a main road. The theater was set up, drums and trumpets were loud, but there were very few visitors. Paul stood outside the gate, looked at the house and sighed, "Life is good like this, but there is no longer anything to enjoy." Stepping inside, seeing a stranger, a boy ran out to greet him and asked his name. When he heard Paul's name, he asked, "You're Kevin's best friend who travels with me, right?" Paul nodded in surprise. And he was even more confused when the other guy grabbed his hand and pulled him upstairs. Entering Kevin's private office, after inviting Paul to sit, the other boy introduced, "I'm John, Kevin's assistant. 2 days ago, he gave me this box, saying if anything happened, give it to me. Now I would like to send it back to you." Paul doesn't know what's in that box. When I picked it up, it felt heavy. "Key John?" Paul asked. "Why did Kevin die?" "It was an accident. Sitting on the sidewalk getting some fresh air, a drunk guy threw a drink at me. Lost on the spot. But before that, he was very strange. For nearly 3 months now he has been mentally unstable. He panicked and always thought that a ghost was looking to kill him. Even worse, while at the company, when he was about to sign an important contract, he ran away screaming loudly, then returned with a knife to slash his partner. He always asked for forgiveness and even cursed. His wife also invited the teacher home, but whoever came, he chased away. Last night, around 11 p.m., he suddenly got up and went out. When the family asked, they said it was hot, so they went to get some fresh air. As soon as I got there, I had an accident." John finished speaking and walked out. Left alone, Paul opened the box Kevin sent and was startled as if he couldn't believe his eyes. "Gold, a box full of gold with an envelope. Paul dear. When you read this letter, I will probably have gone far away. Do you remember the last time we went up the pass? That day, I abandoned the girl's body in the middle of the road. But as for me, I did something unforgivable. I stole her bag of gold, a total of 30 tiles. Even more embarrassing, when you saw her ghost, I thought you wanted a share, so I tried to stay away from you. I successfully started a business. I gathered 30 tiles, and planned to go to her house to return it. But probably not in time. She came back to find me and refused to forgive me. That's the money she sold her house for to have heart surgery for her son. On the day of the accident, she received news that the boy had difficulty breathing. She was selling goods and despite the storm ran back to take her child to the city for treatment. Unfortunately, there was an accident, money was lost, and her son also died not long after. Even if I died, I deserved it, but my son was innocent. I have found the address of a good Dharmasir. Please help me to invite him to neutralize bad karma. In the box is 50 tiles of gold, both capital and profit. Please transfer it to that girl's mother for me. Thanks bro." Paul stuffed the letter into his pocket. According to the business card, Paul called the magician. It was after midnight when the teacher arrived. When he got off the bus, he saw the whole family waiting in line. Everyone's faces were extremely tense. The teacher looked around once, then suddenly he shouted loudly, "Brave witch, after death, why doesn't she reincarnate, holding on to hatred, killing people to create bad karma, what do you want now?" The whole family stood still when they heard that. Everyone looked at Paul, intending to ask what Paul had told the teacher. But Paul's face was also drained of blood and he shook his head quickly. The teacher called his disciples to set up an altar in front of the house. At nearly 5 a.m., the teacher stood up and said, "I have offered enough offerings, I have also helped you eliminate karma so you can practice. If you agree to follow me, you will be trained to be reincarnated. If you no longer have the intention to harm others, I will beat your soul to pieces and you will never be able to reincarnate. As soon as the teacher finished speaking, there was a rush of cold air, causing the candles to tilt as if they were about to go out. Standing still for a moment, the teacher continued, "It's not right for him to take your gold. But he didn't kill her. Running fast is up to you, running fast is up to you, falling down is up to you." He did not know her situation and the purpose of that gold for medical treatment. Furthermore, the gold is loose and floating on the road, not rummaged around to steal. The main thing is that he was greedy, but not cruel. After doing business, he contributed enough gold to make a profit. As for you, you both want to get the gold back and kill it all. Having killed her father and now wanting to kill her son, that's her own bad karma. Please let go of all your attachments and follow me to practice. They will give the other 50 tiles of gold to your family. The cold air emerged again, but this time it swirled around and curled into the incense burner on the ceremony table. The teacher turned back and said to Kevin's wife, "Her husband died, but his ghost tried to fight with the other woman to protect the child in his wife's womb. If I show up just a few hours late, the results will be very bad." Luckily there was still time. Now everything is fine. The family takes care of the rest. Of course Paul then followed Kevin's will. The boy Fang is now 4 years old, smart and healthy. Fang's wife continues to operate the company. Because everything has cause and effect, be responsible for your own actions so that you never have to say the 2 words, "if only," and this is the end of the story. If you find the story interesting, please give me 1 like and 1 subscriber. I hope everyone has fun listening to the story. See you in the next videos. Goodbye.